I'm not saying I believe that getting married at first sight is the way to find a partner. I think it's one way. But what I do believe in is the power of this experiment to create growth for people. So whether that's individuals or as a couple, it can only be a good thing.
Hello and welcome to Separate Bathrooms. I'm Cam Daddo.
And I am Ali Daddo.
You feeling okay?
Look, I am. I've just got a little bit of a head cold, so I apologise for my somewhat stuffy nose that you're going to hear throughout this podcast. But, you know,
It's been lingering, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've been trying to keep it at bay for some time, but I'm a little worn out at the moment.
Oh.
So it'll be okay. It'll be
Well,
all
you've
right.
been working hard
Yeah,
with your book.
It's not COVID. We know that.
Well, yeah, you're one and done on that.
Yeah, thank God.
But you've been peddling your book,
A little bit.
which has
Little
been
bit.
going great.
Yep.
Congratulations again.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, someone very interesting is coming into our bathroom today. We're not sure when she actually decided to become a psychologist. She's stepped into that role. She's stepped into an even bigger role and has become a very well-known TV personality. We're going to hear all about how she got to that role, which is a great story.
She's a serious businesswoman. She's had plenty of experience in the relationship sector. She's been a love expert for 20 years.
She's a coach, she's a motivational speaker, a consultant, and a TV presenter.
Let's get to know MAFS, Mel Schilling. Mel, we met you on telly a few years ago when you started doing MAFS. That's how we know you. Where did it all start for you? You're from Melbourne, right?
I am,
As well.
yeah. Melbourne's home, absolutely.
Who do you barrack for?
Collingwood.
Ah. We might just wrap this up right now.
Oh dear. You said the C word, Mel. You said the C word. We're in trouble.
That's hilarious. Do you
I
know
could
that-
start and say, but you've got all your teeth. How can you barrack for Collingwood?
Exactly, and only one head.
Cameron,
But
that's terrible.
I can totally wear that.
come on.
I don't actively barrack for Collingwood. I've probably been to about 2 AFL games in my life. So I'm hardly a, model footballer.
So you're from Melbourne. Did you study in Melbourne and all that sort of business?
I did. And I went to uni. I went to Deakin. I went to Melbourne Uni, and I went to Victoria Uni, and did everything you have to do to become a psychologist, which in those days was an undergrad and then a postgrad and then a bit like an apprenticeship, 2 years under supervision. Did all of that in Melbourne and lived most of my life there until I discovered traveling and lived in Dubai for a couple of years, which was incredible. Since I've met Gareth, we've lived in Bali for a couple of years with Maddie. So that was amazing with her in tow from the age of 2.5. And now we're here. So moving around a lot. But I was a psychologist for 20 years.
And were you a psychologist in Dubai as well
I
as
was.
Bali? I mean, were
Yeah.
you really?
Yeah.
How amazing. Were you seeing Australians in Bali, or were you seeing the Balinese, or?
In Bali, I was working mostly online. So I've been running online programs for a few years now. So I was really, location independent. I could sort of travel and move around, and so was hubby. And so I would just fly back to Sydney for filming and back to Bali. And we had this great life in Bali.
The question that I'm so curious about is how did they find you for MAFS? Where did that come from? Was that out of the blue, or what on earth got you onto TV for MAFS?
Can I say, Ellie, they didn't find me. I found them.
Did you? Okay.
Yes.
Do tell.
So I wasn't in season 1. Season 1 went to air and it was it wasn't a whole different group. There was a different psychologist on the team. And at this point, I was doing lots of morning show stuff and the project and, all that sort of thing, and really just doing a lot of turning up, offering expertise around relationships, mental health, well-being, that sort of stuff. Because I have a performance background. So for me, you know, the foray into television is very, very natural. If I'm not on television, I'm on stage, or, you know, that's my thing. These days it's more speaking than dancing, but I'm working on that.
You can do both.
We could have Maths the musical, Mel, and you're the lead.
Do not tempt me. Oh my gosh. I would be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah, all right, let's get it going.
But now that I'm here, I have got my sights set on Strictly Come Dancing 2023. So you just watch. You just watch that happen. Woo! Yeah,
nice.
More training required for that one. Yes, so I was watching the show, and by this point I had qualified as a dating coach as well. So I was doing loads of work around dating and working mainly with single women who, the general pattern was women who were like me, who had poured all their life into their careers. They were getting to their maybe late 30s and starting to think, oh, I've forgot to get married. I forgot to have kids and the clock's ticking and what do I do? So that seemed to be kind of the pattern. You know, you attract the clients that you need to learn lessons from, I find. And those were the women that were teaching me a lot at that time. And so I became the first Aussie actually to be accredited as a dating coach, and such a thing actually exists in the States, and it's on the rise here too, but still pretty new in Australia. And started doing that work, and so I was very interested in the whole world of attraction and relationships and communication and conflict and all of that between couples. And funnily enough, when I was doing a lot of my corporate work, which was where most of my work had sort of happened before that, I'd find that I'd be coaching people or running a workshop and working with groups. And so often, because a lot of what I would talk about would be communication, it would come back to attraction and dating. And, you know, we'd be talking about how to, let's say, speak up and be assertive in a meeting at the office. And before you know it, we'd be talking about, oh yeah, I was on this date recently and this guy said this and I really wanted to speak up. And so this I guess symbiosis, you know, between what happens at work and what happens in relationships started to really become so clear to me. And I realized that a lot of the coaching skills and psych-based skills that I was applying in the workplace could really work in people's personal lives as well. And that was something I was a lot more passionate about, because it was personal to me. You know, I'd spent my entire 30s single and just traveling and, you know, focusing on my career and running around on stage in costumes. And I kind of did get to that point where I was 39 and thought, oh, it wasn't so much the biological clock ticking for me, but I wanted a partner, and almost left it too late. So back to the show. So I was doing dating coaching, and friends were sort of saying to me, well, and my partner at the time, who's now my hubby, said, you should be doing this show. This is so you. This is just what you eat, sleep, and breathe. This is your passion. You do this stuff all the time. And you're a performer. Why don't you, you know, get out there? You should be on there. And so I just started working my networks and figuring out who it was that was casting the show and running the show, and put together a little show reel. By that point, I had a few little pieces that I had been doing over the sort of couple of years leading up to that, and basically pitched myself to them and said, this is what I would do differently. This is why you need me. And at that point, they said to me, look, we have 3 experts on the panel, but we're open to one more. We're open to the idea of having 4 experts. So I thought, okay, not treading on any toes here. I'm going to jump in and absolutely go for it. So I went through all the audition process and so on. And as it turned out, they did only end up with 3, and another person left, and I moved in, and the rest is history.
Wow. Well, congratulations. What a hustle.
I was going to say, as they say, good hustle.
That's amazing. Wow, what a great story. That's such a great confidence building story to sort of hear you take it in your own hands and go, you know what? You need me for this show, not the other way around. Like, that's so great. And then from there, Maths UK. I don't know if a lot of Aussies know that you are also Maths UK as well, but did that just springboard from that as well because they saw you on the Aussie one?
Nope. It was another very similar story. I heard through the grapevine that they were doing well. They already had the show here in the UK, but it was very small.
Yeah.
It was almost like a documentary, and only had two couples, and it was only a few eps. And I heard that they were going to follow the Aussie model and supersize it like we did here. And I remember I was told about it as I was about to walk on set in the Australian show, and what it's like when you're about to go on set. Everything's happening and it's busy and there's people everywhere and hair and makeup and madness. So I didn't really process the information. I went on set, did a 10-hour shoot as we do, and went home, got to bed at 5 a.m. It was absolute madness. Woke up the next morning, bolt upright, and just went, oh, this is an opportunity. I need to pursue this. And so I did. I followed through. I had some contacts with the people who actually own the rights to the show, got in touch with them and said, I've heard a rumor that you're supersizing the British show. If you're open to international experts, I'd love to talk to you. And as it happened, things progressed over a few weeks, and they said to me, look, it hasn't been greenlit yet, but here, we're going to set up a meeting for you with the people who are producing it, just to sort of kick around some ideas, very much a preliminary chat. So I was very relaxed, got on the call. I thought we were just going to sort of be brainstorming ideas, and I thought I'd be sharing, some insights from the Aussie version of the show. And before I knew it, I kind of realised that they'd already cast me in their mind, and they were asking about schedules and when I could get over there. I thought, this isn't actually the audition or an early chat. This is actually a done deal. So that was kind of fabulous. And then things just kind of rolled from there. And so now I'm just doing both back and forth.
Fantastic.
Mel, is there a similarity between the Brits and the Aussie? Would you say contestants, or
we call them
how do you
contributors.
describe?
Yeah.
Contributors. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there similar emotional needs and things like that between the two cultures? Because we're quite different, aren't we, Aussies and Brits? And yet we are the same.
We absolutely are different. And I think I went into it with a lot of preconceived ideas and expectations. I must say, full disclosure, I'm married to a Brit. Well, actually, he's Northern Irish. But he definitely identifies strongly British. And, so I had some ideas, and I have a British background. Both my nanas were born there. But I went into it expecting there to be a lot of stiff upper lip, to be a lot of that British, we don't talk about what happens down there, Oh, it's a podcast. I'm pointing to the down below region. I thought after, our Aussies are like, they're so open and so candid and so comfortable to open up and just, really share what's going on, throughout that experience. And I was expecting it to be like pulling teeth. I was really preparing myself for some tough interviews where I'd, really have to try a number of different angles to get people to open up. And to be fair, it was a little bit like that to begin with. But once our initial crew kind of got to know us and realised that it was a safe space and they were, there was a level of comfort to open up. Whoa, did they open up? Oh, they let it rip. Incredible. And for me, there are so many accents here, as you know, in the UK.
Yes,
I'm trying to decipher, what is that accent? Where's that person from? Can I understand them? Did they actually say what I thought they said? And then, of course, there's all the turns of phrase and sayings that we don't use that are totally different. And all the ones that I use, I find I become even more Aussie when I'm on set. My Aussie.
They must love that, though.
Amplify. Oh, they think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I think with this current season, we're probably going to need to have subtitles in Australia because some of the accents are so pronounced. I don't know how it went.
Wow.
Our first season is on air, online. You can see it on the 9 Now platform. It is available there.
Okay.
Yeah, so your listeners can go and watch it. And I think this next season will be as well. But this next season is just so full of diversity. It is just an absolute joy. It is full of surprises, people from all walks of life. I'm really excited about this next one.
Fantastic. I guess the question that we always want to know when we've watched it is how much of the advice is left on the cutting room floor, so to speak. Is there a lot that's edited out from you guys? I mean, I know that they must have hours of footage from the people on the show, but is there a lot that's lost from what you guys are saying as well? And is that ever disappointing for you when you go, oh man, I gave that person such good advice and it never made it to the show?
Yes, Ali, yes, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. It's so frustrating because, those commitment ceremonies can last, 10 hours or so. And, so we can have 2 hours with one couple sometimes, and you might see 3 or 4 minutes of that time. So it's so in-depth. There's so much back and forth and advice giving. You really don't see us giving advice, really. Occasionally we'll do a little wrap up at the end and say, here's a couple of tips summarizing, but there's so much that happens. And, as the editing process goes, what often makes it to air is the more colourful part of it, whether that's some conflict or tears or whatever, the love story. But yes, there is so much that happens there. And, we build a real connection, with our contributors. And when things get rough, as they do sometimes, in the group dynamic and so on, they really do look to us for some guidance. Sometimes they take it, sometimes they couldn't think of anything worse. There's certainly always people in there who don't want to play ball with us, but we do play a really quite a significant role in the room there, and it does last for hours and hours.
I guess it's probably the first time a lot of people have been in front of any kind of therapist as well, I would imagine, because they're often quite young, the contributors, or
you'd be surprised.
And especially in the they've already seen some.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I'm actually glad to hear that.
Surprised at which aspect?
You'd be surprised. A lot of them have been through some kind of therapy or counselling or some kind of treatment. I think it's a little bit more in vogue with the young ones than it was when we were that age. The stigma,
good.
I think,
That's good to hear.
I think it's a really positive thing. So often we'll hear, young people saying, oh, I learned this from my therapist, or I learned this when I went through counselling or family therapy. So I do hear a lot of references to it, just casual references to it. It's not a brag or it's not anything to be ashamed of. It's just very matter of fact. And I love that about, this younger group of people coming up. Gosh, imagine if we said that when we were 20, it'd be like, shame.
I wouldn't have even thought about it at that age.
No.
But
you'd think that's for sick people.
Yeah, that's right.
That. In your dating coaching, would you ever say to someone, you should go on this show, MAFS? Would you ever do that? Would you ever advocate for this scenario of meeting someone and getting together just on the first meeting?
Look, I wouldn't, but for a different reason. I wouldn't because there'd be a conflict of interest. If it was someone I knew or was a client, I couldn't do that. In fact, there's been people who have applied for the show before and I've been aware of it and I've had to declare it, and they've said, no, we can't actually bring them onto the show because it would be a bias, it would be unfair.
Yeah.
But I guess more generally, look, there are certain people that I would encourage to do it and others that I wouldn't. It does take quite a level of resilience and self-awareness, I think, to get through this show in a way that is going to be fulfilling for you. I think the people that get the actual growth out of this process are the ones that have probably done a bit of work on themselves first. So those more naive characters that come into the experiment and don't really know how to manage themselves or to cope with that kind of pressure, I think find it really hard. And so I wouldn't recommend someone who is a bit fragile going through the show.
But clearly there have been those sort of people on there.
There have,
Yeah. I hung out for a night with Bryce and Melissa. Do you remember those two? They've got twins now.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah. The way they were painted on the show, I remember looking at it going, I wasn't quite sure how that was. But then when I spoke to them, and I actually spoke to Melissa for quite a while, and she was just so lovely. Yeah. And she said that she really went on that show to find someone.
Yep.
And she said, and then she's turned to Bryce and gone, he went on for his own reasons, or he got cast or something like that. I'm not
Yeah,
sure, but they were completely not what I thought they were
yeah,
going to be,
yeah.
because of just the way they were edited, I
Yes,
guess. And that does
yes,
play a part, doesn't it? The
it
editing on the
does.
show of how certain people are portrayed. I mean, we need the
Yeah,
villain, we need the
yeah.
hero, and everyone in between.
Look, that's right. And you hear a lot of people come off, not just our show, but all reality shows really, and talk
Mm.
about not being happy with
Yeah.
their edit. And there's often a lot of debate about, well, you can't editing can't make you into a bad bloke if you're not one, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever comes out of your mouth is within your control and that sort of thing. But there is a level of editing that is biased and is to create a story.
Mm.
This show has morphed into something that is so big and such an entertaining juggernaut that's where the focus is. So for us as the experts, our role is very much just focused in on those couples and what is right for them. The producers do their
Mm.
job and we do ours. So it's very separate. I think there's often this misconception that we're the ones who are doing a lot of that behind the scenes stuff. We don't
Yeah.
even see them for therapy or any kind of counselling behind the scenes. There's another whole team that do, the whole wellbeing team that do, from psychologists through to counsellors, doing all of that, the welfare checks and everything day to
Oh,
day.
okay.
So we're very separate from all of that.
Right.
Do you still believe that the experiment of maths is a positive one?
Mm-hmm.
And B, why do you think so many people tune in every week? Why is it constantly the number one show in Australia? I don't know if it is in England, but it certainly is here.
It's rocketing up the charts here as well, but I think for different reasons. Yeah, I couldn't get up and go to work every day and do it if I didn't believe in it. That's just not in me. I've definitely had my belief in it shaken over the years, but ultimately what I do believe is that I'm not saying I believe that getting married at first sight is the way to find a partner. I think it's one way.
Right, yeah.
But what I do believe in is the power of this experiment to create growth for people. So whether that's individuals, which I see a lot of, or as a couple, which I see less of, it can only be a good thing. And look, we're often in touch with former participants who say things like, I learned so much about myself throughout that process that I've now got onto this great relationship, and now I'm starting a family with this person. I couldn't have done that without having this insight. So I think just having that opportunity to get so much feedback, not just from us but from the group, to learn about yourself in that group dynamic, to see yourself back. I mean, what powerful feedback, seeing yourself back on telly. It's not always positive, but I think it's always powerful. I absolutely believe in that, and I love watching the transformations that so many people go throughout the process, and those aha moments.
Yeah, it's a big spotlight, isn't it, on them?
It is,
and
not everyone's
especially
ready for it.
No.
Yeah. And probably they think they might be, but then from what you gather, it's a hell of a ride.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think it's something that you can really prepare for. The experiment yourself, within the experiment, you're very much within a bubble, and you're supported from, every direction. And so it's quite there's a safety net there, and there's always you can press eject if you need to. But out there in the real world, and when there's social media and tabloids and all of these people chasing them around, it's, it can be very cruel and very biased, and it can be very tough for people. So our duty of care definitely continues down the track. I think the show is popular in Australia and the UK for different reasons. In Australia, I mean, it's everyone our audience has been along the ride with us and has watched it grow, and so there's been that, I guess there's that background, there's that, long-term commitment that people have had to the show. But Aussies also love to hate, and we love to watch shows because it annoys us or it frustrates us. A lot of the feedback that we get, not all of it, but a lot of it, a vast, not majority, but a lot of the feedback that we get is criticism of the show. but it's healthy criticism of the show. And, you know, I think Aussies like to think critically, don't we? We like to go, oh, that's problematic for this reason. And let me unpack that. And, you know, I find the Aussie audience is very critical in their thinking and wants to understand why things are happening and what's happening in the mechanics of the show. And I think they're probably, the Aussie audience are quite sophisticated now too, and they understand the way reality TV works. And so, you know, they don't fall for any of the tricks that they used to in the old days. They see the show for what it is. And I think that's a really good thing, you know, because for us, it means that they know the limitations of our role. For example, years ago, they used to assume that we would have visibility of everything that the couples are doing during the week because the audience sees it. And we don't. We're not there. You know, we're not there in their apartments with them. We just turn up to watch the dinner parties and to be at the commitment ceremonies. So they've learnt that. The audience has learnt that now, which is great. So that they don't have these expectations that we will know certain things that, you know, we might not know. But yes, generally I think why it's so popular in Australia, I think definitely conflict. I think that is something that people are so fascinated by, so drawn to, and it's, you know, it's difficult to look away from sometimes. And the fact that I think we go into so much depth about people's, not just their backstories, but you know, when you watch an individual just doing their voxy or just speaking straight to the camera by themselves, and you've got the producer there unpacking everything that's going on for them. You know, you get to see so much of the internal workings of people's minds that it's quite voyeuristic and it's quite addictive, I think.
Yeah.
I think people love that. I mean, look, we all love a love story, but as we've all figured out by now, that turns out to be quite a small percentage of what happens on our show. You know, we all hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And, you know, it doesn't always turn out to be a happy ending. But I think what has grown even more is the fascination with the group dynamic. And, you know, that's become something that our audience love to unpick and understand and look for little nuances that are going on and make connections that we might not even see. So there's that. It's a very critical way of watching the show. It's not just to sit back and let it wash over you. It's very much, we have a very actively engaged audience. They're heavily invested emotionally. And sometimes that comes across as support. Sometimes it comes across as critique.
You said before that you guys don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure, I sit there and watch you guys watching the dinner party.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'll be honest with you, I felt like, geez, they're shit actors. They know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Because I've done shows with Mark Burnett in the States and things like that. And I was privy as the host of my show that I did.
Right.
I knew exactly what was going on. I had producers filling me in on all the background stuff.
Yep.
If you look at Survivor and you see Johnny LaPaglia talking with the group.
Yep.
I did a show like that in the States, and I knew the buttons. I knew what was going on. So I was watching for the triggers and all that sort of stuff. And then I put the zinger in there. And I see you guys sitting in front of your monitors with your empty with your glasses of water and your pads that don't get touched.
Yeah.
You know, no one's taking notes.
No.
And I'm like, this is crap. They know exactly what's going on. But you're saying no. So, but that's the thing. I'm watching the mechanics of it.
Let me be clear. I'm saying we do get an overview from producers, absolutely. Yep. So just generally what's happening with each couple. But what I'm saying is we don't see any footage. So we don't actually, you know, we haven't seen anything play out. You know, we haven't even seen the weddings, you know. So it is just that sort of top line idea of what's going on, and the rest is up to us, so that you are getting those spontaneous, you know, responses, because we are crap actors. We couldn't do it if we just had to, you know, be there and go, oh, I wonder what's happening with that couple. It would be just abysmal.
One thing that it's a bit, for me, reality TV's taken away, as you know, from scripted television, which that's where I got my start doing, you know, dramas and comedies and scripted TV. And so now,
well, you got your start in a dating show too, though. So
let's not forget
Yeah,
Perfect
well,
Match.
that's true.
Yeah.
Let's not forget Perfect
Can't forget
Match.
old
Sorry
Dexter.
to
Yeah.
pull that one
See,
up on you, honey.
we had our moments of maths, but it was a little. We never saw any of that stuff.
Yeah, you had that
loved
was
it.
first time dating.
I'd talk about what happened on the weekend. Was there any nookie on the weekend?
Oh, nookie. Yeah, you would have said nookie. Was there any,
Something like that.
Yeah, when they went up to Surfers Paradise and saw the big banana for their first date.
That's right.
That's right.
It's
That's
so
right, the big
Aussie.
prawn.
I love it.
The big prawn, whatever it was, Copacabana. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I think what we used to do as well was watch daytime soaps for this sort of stuff, and now
Right.
Oh, yeah.
and now we're not watching those.
Yes.
They're not as popular because we're actually getting the reality of it, watching people really respond
Yeah.
to what's going on, and also that when you said preparing, you can't prepare for a show like this.
No.
And if you do go on there with some kind of MO, it gets undermined because you've got a radio mic on you and a camera on you the whole time, and you can't. It's hard to keep that facade up. So
Yeah.
you're seeing
Yeah.
people really get raw quite quickly.
And we do.
Which
We
I think
see
that's-
those masks come off. It's quite clear when someone comes in wearing some kind of mask, having an agenda. Because the show goes for so long, and it's a good couple of months that they're under this pressure. We find that falls away before long, and the real person comes out, and then they kind of look back and go, "Oh, I wasn't actually." You weren't actually getting the real me. Now this is a real me. That's what we want to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Putting maths aside,
Sure.
because thank you for all that info. All that that was really interesting.
Mm.
You met your husband on eHarmony, is that right?
I did. Yes.
Oh, well, first of all, congratulations. I love that. So many
Thanks.
successful relationships have come out of online dating, which
Yeah.
I think has been changed the world of dating for so many people.
Absolutely.
How long have you been married, and also how does your work assist in your relationship with your husband? I mean, I would.
Oh, you think it
helps
assists?
a lot, but I would
You're making
think
an
no.
assumption
Should
there.
we get?
We'll take either way.
Maybe we need to ask him.
He's downstairs asleep with the brand new puppy that we got last night. So he's gone downstairs. He's taken a bed
lovely.
downstairs to sleep next to the puppy. Oh, it's so
Aw.
cute.
Well, that
So then-
says a lot about him.
It does. It does actually. How long have we been married? I think it's come up to 5 years. We've been together for 11. We met when we were both just about turning 40. So it's 11 years we've been together now. And look, there's no way I would have met him if not for the online thing. I mean, he is from Northern Ireland, but he was based in Adelaide at the time, and I was in Melbourne.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have bumped into him. In fact, I actually think, looking back, I might have messed up the geographical settings on my profile because I didn't want to meet someone from interstate, let alone
right.
the other side of the world. Because I had been dating, all of the commitment phobes and unavailable blokes in Australia for years, and most of them lived interstate. And I kind of set that up, to self-sabotage, which I
There you
became an
go.
expert at. Yeah. And then he was this guy. But the difference was that we connected intellectually. I would just get so bored on dates with guys. I just, there'd be a little bit of a spark, and then I'd be like, yeah, but, what can you tell me that's going to be interesting to me? How are you going to challenge me? And that was just what I was really searching for. And, this one came along. And what was good was that we didn't get to physically meet for 6
This one who's in the doghouse right now.
Quite literally.
In a good way.
In a cute, cuddly way.
Yes.
We only spoke via text for 6 weeks. And that was an amazing way to go really deep with our conversation. I tried to have one conversation with him on the phone, couldn't understand a word he said. The accent is so strong. Still
wow.
is to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it meant that by the time we met, we were very connected, and there was a real bond there. And, it didn't mean that I wasn't incredibly nervous when I met him and did everything wrong. Everything that I suggest to my clients to do, I did the opposite. Just unloaded my life story in a very high-pitched, fast-talking voice. So shoulders.
You liked him, didn't you? You liked him.
I was that giggly girl. And then he leant across and just put his hand on top of mine and just said, "It's okay. You got nothing to prove here." And I just went, dropped the shoulders and let's go.
Mel, I know we have to tie this up, but just quickly, you did mention you've got a book coming out.
Mm-hmm. I sure have.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's funny, Ali, because you've mentioned two things about the book without realizing it. You mentioned earlier the C word. That's a title of my book. And it's not about Collingwood. It's not the history of Collingwood. It's about confidence.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's essentially a
great.
self-help book for women about building confidence, stepping into courage and building confidence. So that example that, we were talking about earlier of how I ended up in this job is a classic example of, what I talk to my clients about and what this book's about.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. You've certainly lived it.
Yeah.
So, well, congratulations. I look forward to seeing that on the shelves.
Thank you.
And what's the book called?
The C word.
Oh, it is called The C Word.
Yeah. Yeah, it's literally called The C Word.
Great.
You're a busy woman. You're a busy woman with a puppy.
Who's been piddling everywhere today. But that's okay. We're all learning.
Well, look, we better let you go to bed because I know it's late over there in the UK. But thank you so much for your time. And this chat was really, really fun.
Oh, I've loved it. I actually do feel like I've known you guys forever, like I pretty much grew up with both of you. So it's very easy to talk to you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Mel. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the telly soon.
Absolutely. Keep an eye out on Channel 9.
New season.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mel.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye. That was a really great chat. That was so enjoyable. That was all the ins and outs of MAFS that I've wondered about for so long. And now she's really given us a much more interesting insight to what goes on behind the scenes. Imagine 2-hour therapy sessions for those couples on the couch. And as she said, we see sometimes even less than that. Sometimes we don't even see the couples on the couch. They just skip right over them. Go, "You're fine. You're staying. Off you go." And little did we know they've had, hours of going over what's happened. And yeah, that was really interesting. She's quite a bubble, isn't she? A bubble of joy.
Well, she's a businesswoman. She's got all those different things going on.
Yeah.
Plus she's we didn't actually ask her if she's still seeing people one-on-one in terms of therapy.
Yeah, I wonder if she's got time for that.
Yeah, I imagine that.
Probably through her online stuff, I would imagine that would be the case.
Yeah, I was really happy to hear that, what they do when they don't know what's going on. I always thought when they're sitting in front of those monitors that they know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I'm glad that they don't know a lot of it, that they're discovering it along with us at the same time, for the most part.
Yeah.
They do know the broad strokes.
Yeah.
But.
And as she said, when you're watching that show, there's a healthy level of skepticism that you need to have as well, going, how much of this is, real? What are we being shown? What are we not being shown? What's being pumped up? What's being highlighted? All that stuff is still very much part of the reality show existence.
Yeah, and audiences are smart.
Yeah.
Audiences are clever. We've been watching reality TV for since Big Brother, or maybe I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Before that, so since around 2003, I suppose. So it's been 20 years of a steady flow of reality TV. So audiences, we do become more educated in terms of what's real and what's probably produced and pumped up. And
certainly people have spoken post their reality show saying this is not, know. And then, there has been a lot of, I do get concerned still for people and their mental health. Some shows that they've not specifically talking about MAFS, but other shows that they've come out of, and it's been a hard road because public opinion can come down so harsh on people, and somewhat unfairly, I think, too.
Yep, and also let's not forget that once the show's done, a lot of times that's it, and you're not given that same care that you are whilst you're in the show. You might get a month or so, a couple of phone calls after, you okay, what's going on? And then suddenly you're left to your own devices. And that's also physically as well. So you can have a physical ailment, like if you're on a SAS show or something and you knock yourself around, you know, it can be a year down the track and you still got the issue with a sore shoulder or knee. So there's those ongoing sort of things. So, but what I was going to say before is we've gotten to know the process of reality because everyone knows someone, or maybe not everyone, but we all know someone who knows someone who knows someone that's been on a reality show.
Yeah, it's becoming like that, isn't it?
Yeah, because we're a small country,
right?
You know, and as the years go by, chances are we're going to know someone who's been on one of those shows.
Yeah, probably more so if you're from the city, I would imagine. Like, you know, the bigger cities, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, it seems, probably that way. But
what about Farmer Wants a Wife?
True.
Right? Then you got the country people.
True.
Why am I putting that out? We
I don't know,
talk like this.
That is Southern American. So I'm not really sure, hon. I've got to go.
Must be early in the morning.
Sorry for my blocked nose during the chat. All right, separate bathrooms. Thanks for joining us.
They work separate bathrooms, don't they, honey? All right, we'll see you next time. Take good care.
Thanks for listening.